Good morning. Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, August the 23rd, the 235th day of the year. There are 130 days left in 2022. And welcome to another edition of Tuesday with Thom. And as you know, I am not Thom Gossam. My friend I affectionately call TG. Thom had a prior engagement this morning. He's unable to be here. So you have me. I'm sitting in the big chair this morning. But we're still going to carry on the show as normal. We'll have our roundtable discussion. We have a special guest sitting in who's been here before. And we also have our G-list guests. Before I move on, I want to say thank you to all the friends, all the family, the alumni and associates that offered me congratulatory remarks on my recent appointment to the Georgia State Board of Public Health. Last Tuesday, I had the pleasure of being sworn in by the governor of Georgia, and I really appreciate all the kind words and the congratulatory comments that I received from that. So thank you all for that. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. Today, our G guest list is Joe Slowensky. He is going to discuss his film, A Miracle in the Woods. That's an interesting title. Can't wait to find out what the miracle was. But speaking of miracles, right about now, we could use a miracle in the United States. Inflation is out of control. Congress has passed an Inflation Reduction Act. However, included in this act is a provision for the IRS to hire 87,000 IRS agents. Now just think about that. They're going to pass a new act called the Inflation Reduction Act, but then they're going to go out and hire 87,000 IRS agents to collect the money from middle-class America. Sounds like to me this is counterproductive. And speaking of that, guess what Kanye West, Tom Brady, Jared Kushner, the son-in-law of the former president, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband, in addition to Khloe Kardashian, Jeff Koons, and Reese Witherspoon all have in common, besides being rich and famous? They all had PPP loans, and they all have been forgiven. People like Ruth Chris Steakhouse and Shake Shack and all of them, they had PPP loans, but they were so embarrassed that they gave theirs back. I wonder why these particular individuals didn't give theirs back. When we had small business owners, people losing their jobs, losing their livelihood because the PPP money ran out. But you had people like Tom Brady, who didn't need a PPP loan, Kanye West, Jared Kushner, and of all people, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband getting a PPP loan. Perhaps they should give their money back and help their fellow Americans that didn't get an opportunity to get a PPP loan. First of all, why were they eligible in the first place? Doesn't sound like common sense to me. Oh, I forgot. And forgive me, I'm going to use some incorrect grammar. Common sense ain't all that common. Like I said, we need a miracle in American leadership. Anyway, I digress. We look forward to talking to our G-list guest today. Perhaps we will learn something from A Miracle in the Woods. With that, let's go over to our sponsor today, which is Best Girl.
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girl's team of consultants, led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam, Emily Hedrick, and Sean Jones, partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership, with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girl's customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communication, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development.
Remember, Best Girl creates the solution that fits your needs. So let's get started with our roundtable guest today. Sitting in for me is Eric Simmons, who's been on the show before, and we have Barbara Wallace Edwards. Barbara, good morning.
Good morning, Michael. How are you today?
I am doing well, Barbara. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. And thank you for sitting in for Thom. You're doing an excellent job so far. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you. I certainly appreciate it. I wish you had left that so far off so you didn't jinx me the rest of the way, but we'll shoot our best shot.
You're going to be fine. I have no doubt about that.
Let's also bring Eric in because he's our guest. Let's not leave him sitting out there. Sean, can we bring Eric in? Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Barbara. Good morning, Michael.
How you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. I kind of picked up on the miracle in America that you had mentioned. And interestingly, the Simmons family is looking for one because our two youngest children received additional degrees after undergraduate school, one a master's and one a doctorate. And so we are anxiously awaiting on a miracle around student loan forgiveness. And I would submit to you the $25,000 that's being proposed, that's not a lot. It's not a lot. So we're hoping for a miracle in that area.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I heard an update on that, Butch, and I don't know if it will actually fly or not, but they are saying now that there's a proposal on the table that if you make under $125,000 a year, that it'll be a full forgiveness of the full student loan. So that is another proposal that they're looking at, and that would definitely be a miracle for a lot of people if that goes through.
That would be fantastic.
Yes.
Well,
then I wonder, could I go back and ask for forgiveness back from my Auburn days and my student loan?
I want some.
I'll do a Me Too hashtag Me Too, right?
Well, no, I don't think so because you played basketball, and
I was a walk-on.
Well, you still were there, so it doesn't matter. So you will not get any forgiveness on that. And they didn't have the NIL back then either. So that's not going to be an option for you.
Right.
In your world today.
Michael, I want to remind our viewers, our audience that, there's less than 30 days left in summer this year. It's amazing that this year has just flown by. Labor Day will be here in less than another 10 days or so.
Right.
So that is our last major holiday for the season, for the summer season, and fall will be here September 22nd. And again, I think I blinked my eyes and the year has flown by. It's just amazing.
Well, also coming with Labor Day is football season.
That is so true.
The start of college football season, and a week later, it'll be the start of the NFL season. So we have a lot of things to look forward to. I know that Eric earlier was saying that I asked him about Auburn's basketball team, and, he said, well, I'm not too much worried about the Auburn basketball team. I'm more concerned about the Auburn football team. Eric, what's your concern about Auburn football team? Is it because we finished the year out losing 5 games straight?
Well, it's more coming together. There was there were a lot of things going on with Brian Harsin and whether he was going to be there or not. And then we had a quarterback that left. So I'm thinking more along the lines of the Auburn family coming together in full support of the program. Hopefully the coach can do a better job this year. And we've got to have some stability around the quarterback position. And as I was sharing with you and Barbara, I don't think a 500 season will cut it this year. We've got to do much better than that, I think. So those are my big concerns. We were sort of fractured, and the whole world saw it. And that's not good, in a family type of environment, kind of if things fall apart, you want to keep that in-house.
Right.
You don't want all your neighbors to know. And then you try to resolve things internally and move on. So that's what I'm hoping we can do.
Well, I definitely agree with that because your neighbors will use it as a recruiting tool against you.
Yes. And I'm sure they have.
Yes. And I would say what I'm more concerned about is our depth. We already had depth issues and we lost about 19 players in the transfer portal. I think we brought in 14, but we lost quite a bit. I think our defense will be pretty stout this year. Along the defensive line, we should be pretty good. I know that quarterback is a big question. It's kind of funny. They say that if you don't have a clear number one starter, you don't have a quarterback. That the offensive coordinator said that we have a good problem. We have 3 quarterbacks that are very capable.
Right.
I'm going to say that, and I'm going to go out on a limb, and it's not just because I'm an Auburn alumni. I think we're going to have a much better year than people think. I would not be surprised if we don't win 8 games this year or more. And the reason why I say that, last year, those 5 games that we lost in the end of the season, they were all close games and we were in them. Now we let Texas A&M get away from us. The Mississippi State game, we were up 30 points.
Right.
And lost on that game. So I say that because those games are very close, that tells you we're not that far away to getting back to where we need to be. And if you look at the Alabama game, and I think had we won that, the narrative would have been much different.
Absolutely.
Coming into this season.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So I'm not as pessimistic as everyone else is. I think we're going to be much better. I would like to see us pull off a few upsets. Certainly, I want to beat Penn State at home. We owe them payback.
Yes, we do.
But I'm tired of losing to Georgia.
Yes.
And Georgia, I'm sick and tired of losing to Georgia. We need to get.
It's going to be a real interesting season. We talked about this a little bit before the show actually started. I think if we can get a solid quarterback, if the coaching staff makes the right decision about who's running the offense, I think that's going to make or break our team. And so, I'm like you, Michael, the last 5 games, we lost those, but we were in almost every one of those and could have easily won several of them. So, although we lost, there were a lot of changes on the coaching staff. Like you say, we had 19 players enter the transfer portal. We had several players to their season. They played their full years at Auburn, so we had quite a bit of a turnover in the team and in the coaching staff. But I think those changes that they made actually brought the team closer together. There seems to be a lot more unity with the team. We were talking about Brian Harsin seems to be more relaxed and collected, even around the team and his news conferences. And so I think that's going to, that in itself shows that there's some positive changes that have occurred in the team.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm concerned if we lost 1 year in recruiting because of the Harsin debacle. Because you can't compete in the SEC bringing in a whole bunch of 3 stars. Right. You need a lot of 4 stars and maybe get a 1 star if you can, a 5 star if you can. But I'm just hoping we haven't lost 1 year in the recruiting cycle.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. Well, to follow in what Bruce Pearl has said, Auburn is an everything school. Basketball is on a pretty high note, and that basketball coaching staff is certainly recruiting their tails off.
Oh, yes.
Our baseball team was back in the World Series. They need to reload. Yes. I think if we can get women's basketball back, we have a new track coach. I'm looking for big things from him. So I think we'll get back on top. We just got to – it takes a little bit longer with football because of the nature of the sport, because of the attrition, injuries, and all of that type of stuff. And it's a very complicated sport because you got to have every component of that team doing their job and doing it well in order for the whole team to get success. But I think we'll get there. Let's turn our attention.
Michael, just real quick, I think we got to give a shout out to the equestrian team too.
Absolutely.
They are awesome. They win like every year, man. So shout out to them.
You're absolutely right, Eric, and I appreciate you bringing that up because every year we're in the hunt for the national championship if we don't win it. So You're absolutely right. And from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody that know more than I do, but I don't think they are scholarship supported for the equestrian. I think that most of those girls, it's their own horse. They have to pay their own freight and what have you. If I'm not wrong, but if so, I stand corrected. But what I heard
I'm not sure.
is quite an expensive sport.
It is.
Yeah.
I think they may get partial scholarships, Michael, and I stand corrected on this as well. I don't know for certain, but I do think some of the team do receive some scholarship dollars now, but I don't know if there's any full scholarships out there. But we'll report back on that next week.
Okay, well, maybe if Auburn can get their NIL program up and running, we can give those girls some support.
Absolutely.
And quite honestly, I'm a little bit disappointed that our NIL program is kind of lagging behind everyone. You don't hear a whole lot about it. And for Auburn to be a major blue blood institution, we need to get our NIL program in the top 10 as well. And I think that'll go a long way as far as getting us back to where we need to be. If you will, let's turn our attention for a moment to the political landscape. As we know, the midterms are coming up. Our former president is dominating the news, not so much because of anything good, but because of what's going on with these documents and what have you. I feel like, well, I know that a lot of people on the Republican side are trying to urge him to get into the race and announce that he is going to run for president again, and I think he wants to do that. I really think it's a strategy, though, because he feels like if he gets in the race and gets the nomination, then that can stop this investigation. Because generally, when somebody is running for elected office, especially one as president, they kind of put that stuff on the back burner.
Right.
His part, heat off him. Any comments?
I agree with you totally, Michael. I think he actually is suing the U.S. government over the FBI search of his Mar-a-Lago residence and hoping that that's going to just put a hold on everything for a little while. So I think he's trying to just stall as much as he possibly can, make his announcement as to whether he's going to run or not. And I do think that he will run, and hoping that that's going to just stop everything, that they'll just leave him alone until after the elections at least. And then he's praying that he'll win again and everything will just come to a complete halt. That's my opinion.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah, I don't know. I think the investigative stage has already left the station. So I don't know that they can stop it. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. Well, I just read something pretty funny this morning. There have been many jokes made about the former president and his tanning, because of his skin colors, because of being tan or standing in the tanning booth. There was a political commentator that lost his job over the weekend because of an analysis, and he tried to interweave a joke, and he made a comment, the former president orange, and the news director and the people did not like that, and he lost his contract because he said that. So just be careful what you say and when you say it too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But you got any to the round table before we move on?
No, I think that's all I have for this morning.
Okay. Barbara, anything else from you?
No, sir. Ready to move on.
Okay. Well, then next, I want to call on Sean to see if she has a minute for us. Sean, do you have a minute?
Hello and happy Tuesday to everyone joining in with us this morning. My name is Sean Jones, and this is Got a Minute. Today is August 23rd, 2022, and our Got a Minute fun fact is actually 1 year old. On this day in 2021, the FDA fully approves the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine for people aged 16 and older. Following a manufacturing review and analysis for the company's expanded clinical trial which included approximately 44,000 participants, and found that the vaccine was 91% effective in preventing the COVID-19 disease. The Pfizer vaccine was the first COVID-19 vaccine to receive full review and approval from the U.S. regulatory agency. The FDA approval for the vaccine use in children aged 5 to 11 followed in October. Thank you all for joining in. My name is Sean Jones, and this is Got a Minute.
Thank you, Sean. We certainly appreciate it. And thanks for giving yourself a hand and a round of applause. Sean does a great job with Got a Minute, and I think she enjoys doing that. I certainly enjoy hearing from her each and every week. It's great. We have a lot of people that are chiming in and saying good morning to everybody, and we certainly appreciate that. And Antley is talking about South Carolina women's basketball team, and he's saying we're always winning the national championship. And Antley, you're absolutely right.
Yes.
South Carolina women's basketball team has it going on right now. They're the beasts at the top of the hill. Congratulations to you, and more to come. But sooner or later, track 'em Tigers will track you down. Just want you to know. It's time for our G-list guests. Hollywood, as you know, has the A-list. And here on Tuesdays with Thom, we have the G-list. Our G-list guest today is Joe Slowensky. Joe and Thom has a friendship. And by the way, Thom was very disappointed that he wasn't able to be here today because he wanted to talk with Joe, his friend. But he has a film of which Thom was a part of. And the film starred Della Reese, Patty Heaton, Meredith Baxter Burney, and Anna Chumsley, and Tom Gossam, who we affectionately called TG. The movie was shot in Wilmington, North Carolina, and according to Thom, it was an absolute blast. Joe and Thom had a blast and started a friendship that continues to this day. And when they weren't working on the film, they were playing basketball. I would have liked to have witnessed that basketball game. I think that Flea and I could probably go up there and take Joe and Thom on a game of 2-on-2 basketball. Right. What you think, Flea?
I think you're right.
I think we can win that one.
I think so.
As a matter of fact, they hung out, they wrote other television scripts, and then they continued their relationship when they got back to Los Angeles. Joe is now a college administrator and still a great friend of Thom. Welcome, Joe. Good morning.
Good morning. How are y'all doing?
We're doing well. Thank you.
It was great.
Thank you. Joe, I didn't know you played basketball, but according to Thom, you guys were playing a little basketball and getting it on out there on the hardwood or either the cement court, whichever one you were playing on.
Yeah, we tried to. You know, it's we're quick. I think we're quick. That's what we got.
Oh, okay.
If we were to go against you and Eric, I think that's what we would bring to the table.
I'm guarding Thom. I've got Thom.
Well, I'll take on Joe, and if I can reach back and to my days where I can stick my elbows over the rim, I think we might just win that one.
Yeah.
I just want to be a spectator, so
yeah, right.
Don't let me know when that game takes place.
You'd watch four old guys get hurt, is what
I'm telling you now. That's right. As a matter of fact, the last time I played basketball was about 10 years ago with a group from Norcross High in a church tournament, and I'm guarding these guys that were playing, Norcross High football and basketball. And I got to tell you what, after that tournament was over, I could barely drive home. And when I got home, I literally crawled up the stairs into my room and collapsed on the bed. And I said, okay, it's time for me to hang it up.
That's it.
So that was it. That was it. Joe, let me congratulate you on your position as a member of the Writers Guild of America West and the exclusive Academy of Television Arts and Scientists Writing Peer Group. You've done quite a few things in your day, and you have this film that we're going to talk about. But I want to start things off because I was checking your profile, and it says at Chapman University, you're a vice provost and a vice chancellor for institutional effectiveness and faculty affairs at Chapman University. That's a mouthful. What does that mean?
Well, I am an administrator. I'm actually vice president now. We've had the number of different roles in the provost's office, what you typically refer to a provost, and that's your chief academic officer. We changed the title of that position at one point to vice chancellor. We've changed it to provost. So we've had a number of different titles, and so that's why my title string looks a little confused. But I'm a vice president these days.
Okay, fantastic. Now, from what I understand, Chapman is a research institution. It's a major research institution, and I saw something about a degree on the science of shelf life or something like that.
Science of shelf life. That's a good one. I haven't heard that much about that one.
I saw that. I saw that as an area of study. We try and do our research here on the program, so we may just ask you a little bit of anything. But tell us a little bit about some of the degrees that you guys offer there at Chapman, because it is a private school from what I understand, and it was. I think it's been in existence since what 1861 or somewhere like
Yeah,
that.
we started on the day that President Lincoln was inaugurated, and one of the first universities, private universities in California, and one of the first universities in the country to admit women and people of all color. So we've been around since the day President Lincoln was inaugurated, and still holding strong. We're
Okay.
uh we're we used to be ranked as a Western regional institution by U.S. News and World Report, but 3 years ago we got bumped up 2 classifications to research level 2 because of that research activity that you're talking about, and so now we're considered an R2 institution, and that's really changed us significantly in our profile because it moved us into the national rankings, and so we broke in. We're around 122 right now in the nation in terms of the national rankings, which is about in the top 1/3 of all nationally ranked universities.
Great. Fantastic. Barbara, you have a question for Joe?
I do. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Barbara.
So good to have you with us. And thank you so much for joining us. I know it's very early there in California. So thank you for joining us very early in the morning for you. I wanted to ask you about your background. I see that you received your Bachelor of Science degree in radio, TV, and film from the University of Texas in Austin, then a Master of Fine Arts in Cinema, Television Production at the University of Southern California. When did you first realize that you wanted to go into TV? Because I read where your father was actually a chemical engineer. So that's quite a turn from your father's footsteps there. So what made you choose the film area?
Yeah, I was the kid that wanted to march my own path growing up. I have two younger
Mhm.
sisters, but I had always been interested in theater, and I had my background was in theater as a kid growing up. I would do plays in this, for the high school and things like that, and then once I got out, I started designing shows, scenery and lighting, and set design for uh, theatrical productions. And so
Mm,
I actually designed the Houston premiere of the show Ain't Misbehavin', the Fats Waller musical.
wow. Yes.
And I got a lot of critical acclaim for that, and was really proud of how the reviews turned out. And about that time, my mentor suggested, Joe, there's not much money in theater. He said, film is where you ought to be.
Right.
And given my interest in photography and lighting, I thought cinematography would make a fun career of study for me. So that's how I got my start. Was my major at University of Texas at Austin was radio, TV, film, and I wanted to be a cinematographer.
Wow. That's great. Thank you.
Eric, you got a question for Joe?
Yeah, Joe, you mentioned mentors, and in life, we often have someone or group of people that we look up to or want to model our behavior after. Who've been some of your mentors in the industry?
Wow, I've had a few. The one of my high school drama teacher was great growing up as a kid. Gave me a lot of different opportunities, even to direct a play on our stage there in high school. And so I would certainly consider him one. And then another technical theater individual was terrific in terms of my design skills and my craft that way. And he was the one who encouraged me to think about film as a profession and get in cinematography. So I would say those folks have been pretty close in terms of the mentorship of me.
Okay.
Cinematography. So
To the Miracle in the Woods, I understand that you are a voting juror for the Primetime Emmy Awards. Tell us a little bit about that and how that vote manifests itself to the awarding of awards and what's all going into that. Because there's been a lot of controversy about uh, people that are getting awards, people that are not getting awards, and so forth. So could you shed a little light on that for us?
yeah, well, I'll try to. I mean, you become eligible to get into the Television Academy through your professional accomplishments. So once you've written a few shows, a few movies, or acted, or in all the different trades within the filmmaking profession, once you establish some credentials and some credits, then you're eligible to be invited into the Television Academy. So it's a fairly exclusive group of artists in Hollywood that are in there by invitation and based on movies that have been made, television series that have been made. And so I think just a lot of the controversy comes in selecting the awards and the nominees, uh, just because of the nature of the way people perceive what's great, what's not great, and sometimes um, folks from Hollywood have different opinions about the quality of a show or things like that. So if I understand your question correctly, I think it's same problem with the Oscars,
Right.
and that um, selection process, but it's all just a group of people, um, making individual decisions about what they think is the best.
Well, and the thing about that is all subjective too, basically.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
And
Yes.
so like you say, everybody has their opinion, and you guys, because you're in the business, you're looking and voting based on maybe your training, your background, and from a technical standpoint. And
hmm
people like ourselves that are out here watching it, we're making an opinion based on emotion, probably more so than anything, and not so much the technical aspects of it.
yeah. I think there's definitely a lot of truth to that. We those of us who make the films and have done it for a while watch film very differently.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Okay. Kind of like how Flea and I watch basketball. We watch it differently. We watch the game within the game, where other people that maybe not be as knowledgeable about it, they look at it from a whole different aspect, and we're
Yeah,
sitting there saying, this person should have the ball right now, and what have you. And they
Right.
don't agree with that. So I find myself in conversations like that quite often.
yeah.
Let's talk about The Miracle in the Woods. Tell us about that film and how it became and your experience with TG and all of that.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a good long story. So I was working as an assistant at CBS Television many years ago, and we would get phone calls all the time from people all over the country. Sometimes you'd wonder a little bit about them. They would try and call and tell you, "I got an amazing story y'all should make." Well, there was a woman who called me from Georgia, wanting to get through, into CBS, and they were telling me about a story that she had experienced, where her two sisters had discovered this little old lady living in a pecan grove on some property that they owned, and in the process of getting to know that woman, they found out that she had a long lost son that had been taken away from her as an infant when she threatened to turn in her husband as a bootlegger back in the 1950s, circa 1950s. And so she had wandered the South all these years and ended up living in this caretaker shack in a pecan grove in Georgia. And when these two sisters discovered her living on their property, they got to know her and befriended her. And then years later, they were able to locate her long lost son for her and bring about this reunion just before she passed. And so it was a really, really touching story that this woman told me when she called me from Georgia, based on a true story, actually. And so I said, look, I'm an assistant. I think there might be something there to your story. And if y'all would be able to and willing to give me your, the life rights to that story, I said I would try personally to see if I could get it made within Hollywood. And, if I was successful, I could give you some money for your rights. And then we'd have a movie and be able to tell this amazing story on film. So they were willing. They gave me the rights to that story. I flew out there and did a research trip and met everybody involved. And then I came back to LA and started pitching it around town to all the different production companies that I thought might be interested in that story. And sure enough, I was able to sell it to Patrick Kaufman Entertainment. We then went back to CBS. I had left CBS by that time and went back to CBS and pitched it to them, and they bought it. And so the story spent about 3 years in development. We worked on that screenplay and rewrote that thing so many times, getting it into the best possible shape. And then it sat there and sat there and sat there at CBS without any action on it, and sat there for a year. And then one day I got a phone call from the producer, and he said, "Hey, CBS said they'll make your movie if we can get Della Reese to star in it."
Wow.
So I'm like, Della Reese, okay, all right. I never thought about her in this role, but of course, her show, what was Touched by an Angel, was very big at
Yes.
the time. And so
Yes.
she was very big to the CBS audience. And they knew if they could get her as the anchor to hold that film together, they would get a big audience built in because of all the success of Touched by an Angel. So I did some tweaks to the script to feature Della Reese a little more and beef up her role. And we sent it to her, and she and her husband made a lot of her business decisions for her. Loved it. And so she committed. And then as soon as she committed, then Patricia Heaton came on board, and she's an Emmy Award winning actress for Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yes.
Gone on to a great career. And then Meredith Baxter came on board, and then Anna Klumsky came on board, and then Thom came on board. And so the project just snowballed after that. And they greenlit it for production right away. We shot that movie in Wilmington, North Carolina. And it did tremendous things in the ratings for CBS. It actually, to my chagrin, ended up being put against Game 7 of the World Series. I was hoping the World Series wouldn't go 7 games that year,
Right.
but they put our show up against Game 7 of the World Series in October back in 1997. And then the movie actually won the week in the ratings, except for Game 7 of the World Series. That was the only show that beat us. But at the time, that was Seinfeld, that was Friends, all those shows
Yes.
on TV back then. It was really exciting that Miracle outperformed them in the ratings.
That's
That's an
awesome.
amazing story.
Mhm.
I like to go back when you said that you went and you did some research and what have you, found out it was a true story. Now, the role that Della Reese played, which role did she play?
She played the woman in the woods. She played
She
the
was
little old lady living in the pecan grove, in that shack, who
okay.
had lost her son. And I tell you, the other breakout star in the film was Sanaa Lathan. She played the younger Della Reese in
Oh,
Miracle in the
Wow.
Woods.
I didn't
So
realize that. That's great.
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay, okay.
And then she
So,
went on to have a great career doing
Yes.
For Love and Basketball, I think she was in,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
yeah,
a lot of other films since then. So
interesting. So Della Reese was a squatter in this place. Then
yes,
she became a squatter. Okay, all right.
uh-huh.
And Tom actually played Della's son, her long lost son.
Thom played the long lost son that they were able to find and bring about a reunion just before the woman passed. Yeah.
Wow.
Beautiful story.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's actually it's running on Amazon Prime right now. It's exciting that it's still out there and accessible for people to see.
That's great.
You know, for a lot of people that do not know what goes in on it a little bit, I'd like for you to expound a little bit. You had to go and raise money, and first you had to get somebody that was interested in it in order to put the money up to produce the film. Is that correct? Take us through those steps of what you did after you decided that you want to do it. You wrote the script, then pick up from there as to how you got it to production.
Yeah, so well, the steps are a little bit different in television, and each movie has its own story of how it got started and got off the ground. But CBS Television actually bought it as a concept. So I hadn't written the screenplay at the time that they bought it, and once they committed to it. Um, they obviously would pay me as the writer to write multiple drafts, as long as it took to get the screenplay developed to the place that they wanted. And so we did that. And then, because they already had the material or the content under contract and they were actively developing it, it was really up to them, to decide whether or not they wanted to complete the project and make the movie. So a lot of scripts get developed in Hollywood, but not all of them get made. In fact, most of them don't get made.
Mhm.
Only the best ones, the most castable ones, the most marketable ones. Those are the ones that the networks, the studios, the production companies are going to fund. So once we had developed the screenplay, once Della Reese came on board, then CBS said, "Okay, we're going to invest in the production," and then that's when they put up the big money for actually funding the production of the film. In this case, it was about a $3 million budget.
Wow. Excuse me. What would you say was the main selling point of this film to get CBS interested in it?
I think just the originality of the story, the really unique factors of this woman being discovered in this pecan grove. I think the setting, a lot of the family type issues, um, and if you're familiar with the television movie genre back in those days, the 80s, the 90s, it was very much targeted towards women, and women were the primary audience for television movies. And so this film had a lot of themes with family and childhood and children, and generations of daughters and grandmas and stuff like that um, were very appealing to women, that female audience at that time. And so it was a heartwarming kind of family story that I think had a lot of appeal to that marketplace.
That's great.
Okay. Barbara, you have a question?
I do. Joe, we talked a lot about Miracle in the Woods, but tell us some other films that you've been involved in writing and helping to get on the airways. And so talk about some of your other works.
Yeah, so I had a lot of scripts that I developed. Some got made, some didn't. I think one of my favorite scripts that never got made was a project that I did for the Disney Channel. Um, it was a story about four girls in intermediate school who end up winning the National Science Fair when they
Mm,
develop a solution to um, the field burning that used to happen in their little small town in Spokane, Washington. Every time after they would harvest the crops, they would burn off the stubble, and it would cause a lot
right,
of atmospheric problems, smoke. People with asthma struggle with that.
right,
Um, and so these girls came up with a solution that they could use that stubble and those stalks to make paper instead. So that was their project at the National Science Fair. And so we did a little fun script for the Disney Channel, but it never got made. So that was one of the disappointments that I had, I think. The other film that I worked on was actually a remake of a 1950s Robert Wise film called Three Secrets, and that film starred Jacqueline Smith
Yes.
and one of Charlie's Angels, original Charlie's Angels. And that film got made for CBS television. Also did quite well in the ratings.
Yes.
Although it hasn't had much of a long life as Miracle in the Woods has. It's hard to find that film on anywhere, but Miracle in the Woods is still running.
Yes.
Yes. Eric.
You know, I'm listening to you, Joe, and when you think about movies and film, you know, that gets people excited. So I would just ask, what advice would you give to those that would want to pursue a career similar to yours?
Yeah, I think, you got to be ready and willing for anything to happen, because you never know where the opportunities are going to come. And so
Right.
um, the film industry and breaking into Hollywood, it's not for the faint-hearted. You have to be in it. It has to be the only thing you want to do. Because if
Okay.
you have an out, you're probably going to end up taking that out because
Mhm.
it's too frustrating at times, right?
Right.
So
Okay.
you have to just be committed, and probably need to be in one of the hubs, either Los Angeles or New York, because that's
Mhm.
where all the big decisions are made, and that's where all the key players are hired for these
Okay.
projects. So um, get you some training. Uh, Film schools and always an option. There's just a bunch of really great film schools in the country, and
Okay.
um, success in the film industry doesn't always mean you have a degree, right? You can
Right.
become successful without any study whatsoever. So
Okay.
the thing about film school that it provides you is that leg up, and it also gives you that network of friends as you go out of film school into the industry. That becomes your network when you first
Mhm.
start.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of different strategies to breaking into the industry, but you just got to be willing to roll with it, to take the opportunities as they come. And
Okay.
as in my case, I finished my master's degree at USC, and I thought, oh yeah, I'm gonna go out there and get them.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up having to work as an assistant, as a secretary, getting people's coffee with
Right.
my master's degree to get my start at CBS.
Oh, okay.
And
Right.
yeah, so it's you just have to be willing to
Yeah.
start at the bottom, even though you think you know everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
You got to be
Right.
willing to
Right.
start over.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I guess in corporate America, the analogy would be you got to start in the mailroom and work your way up.
Exactly,
Right. Right.
exactly, right. But that's not a bad place to be, because you
That's true.
learn a lot
That's
in the
pretty good.
mailroom.
That is so
Yeah.
true.
Thank you for sharing that, Joe. That was insightful. Thank you.
Hmm.
We have a couple comments. Joe Lachelle Law Vaughn says, I'm going to rewatch it this weekend.
Great,
And
thank you.
Joyce Gilly Gossam, Tom's wife, says, great to see you, Joe. Miracle is one of my favorites.
Oh, good. It
So,
better be. It better be.
well, I've got it, especially since this is when Thom auditioned. What made you know from his audition that he was the one for that part?
Oh, that's a great question, but I wasn't actually in on the audition. So I was a writer producer of the film, but there was the director, Arthur Allen Seidelman, who was the one who cast Thom. So I wasn't at the casting session where that happened, but I'm sure I would have loved Thom. So they made a
Okay,
good call on that.
that's great. That's great. That's fantastic. What do you have on the horizon? Any new projects you're working on?
Not right now. I got two daughters. They're getting ready to move off to college this week. I'll have an empty nest, and I got a
Oh,
lot of script
wow.
ideas that are burning that I've been wanting to write for a long time. So I'm entering a new chapter, and I got some projects I think that I want to jump on here as get back into some more writing here in the near future.
So two daughters
Uh,
heading off to college,
Yes,
Joe?
18 and
Wow.
20 years old. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's great. Now, are either one of them planning on following in your footsteps into the film industry?
One of them is in film school. She's a junior
Okay.
in our creative producing program,
That's
and then the
great.
other's gonna start in computer science.
Wonderful. That's great. And I was going to ask you, you're now an administrator, but I understand you're also a professor as well. You still actually teaching classes?
Yes, I do. Every semester, I teach one class. I teach screenwriting because I love screenwriting, and so I
Mm.
teach the fundamentals class. Just somebody
Awesome.
brand new freshman walking in the door, I show them that they can do it too.
That's great.
Wow.
That would be awesome to have the vice president actually as your instructor as well. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's fun. I think the students are tickled by that, and it's fun connecting with them too in my role because sometimes in administration you get so deep in the weeds of all trying to solve all the problems that you
Yes.
lose touch with who you're there for, and that's your students.
Right. That's great.
Joe, I'd like to ask you, what's your assessment of Atlanta becoming Hollywood of the South? We're doing a lot of movies and things here, and I noticed earlier when you said when people getting started, they need to go to the hub, L.A., New York. You left out Atlanta. I think Atlanta's an up and coming. Tell me, what's your perception of Atlanta becoming Hollywood of the South?
Well, I think Atlanta's got a strong production base, and there's a lot of a great tradespeople there in terms of lighting and sound and all the production aspects, And I think that the same was true for Texas. Austin a while back was a
Mhm.
production center. A lot of the big urban areas have that. And even at the time when we shot Miracle in the Woods, everybody was talking about Wilmington because of the De
Mhm.
Laurentiis studios that he had built there, and that
Yes.
there were already
Mm.
movie studios in place if your production needed that. But I think Atlanta is a great production center with a lot of talent coming out of there, and it's a good place to go get movies made for sure because the base of that you need in terms of the talent, the crews, things like that, are there and present in Atlanta.
And it
But
doesn't hurt to have Tyler Perry here in Tyler
yeah,
Perry Studios.
right, right,
Right.
exactly.
Uh, Barbara, Eric, do you guys have another question or final question for Joe?
I was just going to ask you about Chapman University, the diversity makeup. I understand you're also diversity and inclusion is one of the areas that you're responsible for there at Chapman. So talk to us about the diversity, the student body, the enrollment there. Tell us how that's going.
Yeah, it's been a labor of love for me over the last 8 years. We at the time did not have an office for diversity, equity, inclusion, and we had no kind of real plans of how we were going to improve our campus climate, improve our demographics, and even our curriculum. And
Mhm.
so I put together what we called the Chapman Diversity Project because I saw a need that the institution had, and the stigma that we faced as a result of our location. A lot of people thought we were for wealthy Orange County kids,
Mhm.
and so we really didn't like that stigma either, and wanted to show that we're there for all students, especially since that was our heritage back in 1861, was
Right.
being one of the first to admit women and people of color. So I created the Chapman Diversity Project, and it was a grassroots volunteer effort. We had about 300 people on our campus participate in various task forces and advisory groups looking at diversity from all different angles, whether it be from accessibility to demographics to our curriculum, um, even to the images and the art and the statues that we have on our campus. We looked at it from every which way we could,
Right.
and we asked each of those groups, if your group could do anything to improve our campus, give us the top three and
Mhm.
and tell us what those are. And so we gathered up all those recommendations and distilled them into five kind of main goal areas. And that became our strategic plan for DEI at Chapman. And so we introduced that in 2017. And we've made remarkable progress, I think, in so many areas. But like every institution, we know we've got a lot of work to do in a lot of areas too. So demographics is one of the hardest ones to shape. And
Mhm.
um, in California in the next 5 years or so is going to become a majority Hispanic state.
Right.
And so that's the population that we feel like we need to better serve right now, being in Orange County, where the population is already about 50% Hispanic. So we really work hard to make sure our Latinx students are successful, to recruit them, retain them, and we're very happy that they're graduating at the same rates, and if not higher, than all of our other students. So
That's great.
that's been our strategic focus over the last few years, and we'd like to eventually become a Hispanic serving institution, which means you have 25% of your student population are Hispanic.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Eric,
that's
you have a
great.
final question?
Yeah, Joe, as you were talking about diversity, it sort of struck me that it seems like a lot of minority actors, have difficulty finding roles. I actually saw a piece where some female African American actresses were talking about the challenges. If in a perfect world, what would you do, or what would you like to see happen to improve that? To see film and media be a little bit more representative of the demographics of America.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I think the industry is changing. It's a glacial pace, obviously, of
Okay.
the changes that we'd like to see. But I think Hollywood, because of all the recent events over the last several years, has become very sensitized to the fact that we got to do a better job of representation, of making sure that we're representing America as it really is, in terms of the diversity that we have here. And I think, from my perspective as a storyteller, I think the more diverse, the more interesting the story, and the more
Mhm.
you can um, put the spotlight on the lived experiences of people of difference.
Mhm.
It just makes for a much richer storytelling experience and better films. So I think they're coming around, Hollywood, and I think those roles are going
Okay.
to start to happen. But um,
Okay.
it's still, I agree with you that you know the main roles, the leading roles, are still predominantly white. And until we start making some changes there, um, it's going to be a long road. But I think
Okay.
there's some positive steps, and I think the
Right.
industry is moving in the right direction.
Okay. Thank you for
Joe,
sharing that.
Joe, thank you so much for staying with us today and visiting with us. We really appreciate it. It was a pleasure. And we look forward to having you back again. And maybe next time, Thom will be sitting in this chair.
Fantastic. Well,
Mhm.
thank you all, and congratulations on your 100th show, I think, last week, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, last
Yes.
week.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Let's give Joe a hand. Well, that's our show for today. I want to close out with a closing commentary of As I See It. Louisville sergeant fired after being federally charged over the Breonna Taylor raid. Many of you all remember that. Sergeant Kyle Meany, one of the officers present the night Breonna Taylor was murdered, has been fired from the Louisville Metro Police Department. On Friday, Louisville Police Chief Erica Shields stated that she made the decision to terminate Meany after careful consideration and not with ease. According to Chief Shields, and I quote, "I fully respect the judicial process and realize Sergeant Meany has yet to be heard before a jury of his peers. That being said, he is facing multiple federal charges after a lengthy investigation by the DOJ. As an employer, the character of our organization is paramount, and it is not reasonable to expect continued employment under such conditions." You know, that's a true sign of leadership. Chief Erica Shields was once the police chief of Atlanta back during the summer of 2020. And because of a few incidents, she turned in her resignation to then Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. I thought Mayor Lance Bottoms should have declined. She didn't. She accepted. Chief Shields is now in Louisville as the police chief. and showing a true sign of leadership. Atlanta is struggling with crime. And that is how I see it on August the 23rd in the year of 2022. And that's our show for today. I want to thank the audience. We certainly appreciate you. I want to thank Eric. We'll thank Barbara. I want to thank the G-List guest, Joe Slowensky, and thank our sponsor, Best Girl. I want to thank Emily Hedrick, the communicator. I want to thank Sean Big Money Jones, the organizer and the producer of the show, and Got a Minute. Remember, enjoy yourself, make every day count, stay safe, and peace.